in case you're wondering, Baker Mayfield's pregame. This was reported by @SoonerScoop, said to the Baylor players, quote, "You forgot who daddy is. I'm going to have to spank you today."
News team, assemble!
It's time for the unofficial 40 from SoonerScoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carrie Murdoch and Josh McCuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on SoonerScoop.com.
All right, we are back. Carrie Murdoch here with you, Josh McCuistion and Eddie Radosevich. And yes, you are correct in assuming that news team has we assembled on Saturday in Waco. So much so, guys, that we made the national broadcast. Kind of proud of that fact. Way to go, Eddie.
It's pretty cool. I was in the right spot at the right time, and actually, out of like dumb luck, it ended up being pretty big. So,
should we tell the story behind the story on that?
Just as far as
how much Baker knew was going on, or
I don't know. I think that could ruffle some feathers around the athletic department. I think we should just leave it at that.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
we're gonna just leave it.
I'll say this: he knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew that I was standing out there recording all of it.
And you weren't the only one. There were other people in the media.
Yeah, I mean, it's before the game. You can pretty much, and especially a place like Baylor, they don't have much of. I would say Baylor doesn't have very many rules, but I don't want to get into that. But
okay.
They
were very hospitable.
Yeah, they were.
Pizza was bad, but they were hospitable.
The pizza.
And we have a good friend there, Kellen Coleman.
Yeah, no,
that worked at OU.
They do really well. I'm just saying that they don't really care where you go on the field before games. Some places.
Well, that's like OU has made this stupid policy, and I hate it that unless like if you have a sideline pass. But you can go down. You're on the field anytime you want to be. But like me, if I have a press box pass, I can't like go down there with the camera and take photos. Like when we went to Ohio State, people probably remember. Like I was down there as the players were getting off the bus, doing photos as they were warming up on the field, as they were coming out of the tunnel for the first time, and I ran back up to the press box and made a little pregame photo gallery, which I thought was really cool. And like at Baylor, I could go do the same thing, but like at OU. Like, I can't go out and take pictures of the players when they're doing their walk and stuff like that. It's just, I think it's dumb.
Well, and reversely, I can't even go up into the press box before games. So, I mean, it's
weird.
It's really weird. You have to have, like, a combo pass and all of that. But, yeah, right place, right time. And it turned into something bigger, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
And here's the thing, what's funny about that, and this is really what I was talking about, the inside, the stuff, like Eddie and I didn't exactly know that he said that stuff.
No, I had no idea, because I didn't listen back to it or anything before I posted it. I thought it was just...
Did you hear what he was saying on the field, or did you think you heard it?
I took out some, like I edited the video on my phone to take out some... some vulgar stuff. And they were going back and forth from either side too. Yeah. It wasn't just Baker.
It was some John back and forth.
College guys being college guys talking some shit.
Yeah. And so you were just making sure it didn't have anything horrible
like
in there.
Vulgar, yeah.
And then we put it up, and what happened was, I don't know for sure, but they're just the biggest name, so they got. But Bleacher Report was the one who transcribed the whole. You forgot who your daddy was. I'm gonna have to spank
you. Classic. Trash talk.
Which Baker is standing there, in a midriff, just being Baker, which his look, Josh, I don't know what you think about Baker's look, but just the whole belly thing is just, it's weird. It always has been to me.
He's on the Ezekiel Elliott, fashionista kind of movement, the midriff showing. Maybe it's because we're all bigger guys and we're like, nobody wants to see that. Yeah. So maybe that's why we're all opposed to it.
See, I've always thought like Ezekiel Elliott's thing was weird too. Like, and it probably because I grew up in an era where that was the popular thing. Like Jamel Holloway back in the 80s, that's what guys did. They tucked it up under. Like I think PJ Mills probably did that back in the day. But it's just, you're not used to it. You don't see it that much anymore.
Defensive guy that does it for OU is, and I will say this, who I'm getting ready to say, he looks about as good in a
I know who you're talking about.
Kenneth Murray looks exceptional with the midriff. And that's about as non-homo as you can get.
Oh, it's homo.
But it's
okay to embrace it.
Either way, I like it. I think
you don't want to have sex with him. You just think he looks good in a uniform.
Right, exactly.
It's okay to say that.
It looks good.
As I've gotten older, I've become more comfortable in saying that's a handsome man. When I see a handsome, like when I see Matt Leinart or Jesse Palmer or
Matt Leinart,
Brady
Eskimo
Quinn.
Brothers with Blake Griffin.
Yes, Blake Griffin, not even in his class, handsome wise. I don't think. But no, when you see those guys in person, you're like, yeah, that's a very handsome.
It's a very handsome fellow. But Kenneth Murray looks great in a uniform. I'll say that.
So, I think we were talking the inside of the story was that we just didn't know, and then when Bleacher Report put it out there, or not Bleacher Report, Barstool Sports put it out there, it just blew up huge. And then because as soon as you put it up, ESPN was contacting you like, can we have your authorization to use this on all our platforms?
One day I'm going to just be like, no, I don't think so.
You wanted to say no.
Yeah, no.
And I said, no, put it on the SoonerScoop account and then tell them to use it from there.
And they did, and it blew up. But that was top 10 trash talk right there. I
my
thoroughly
mom was
enjoyed it.
texting me during the game saying, they've just mentioned you on TV.
Yeah, see, that's where I have to jump in. That was the thing, because obviously you guys are at the game. You're not watching. I'm at home watching the broadcast, and I'm sitting next to Tiffany, and I'm watching it with my in-laws. And all of a sudden they're like, and this according to SoonerScoop or something like that. But SoonerScoop clearly gets mentioned. Obviously,
we played
in-laws
it in the open.
You
couldn't hear it, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And you can feel my in-laws are like, oh, that's amazing. Like they're like, oh, kind of like almost congratulating me before they've heard. And they're like, you forgot who daddy is. I'm going to spank you. And like the most not trash talky way ever, like weird white guy reading something he's never read before. And so it was so bad.
It was almost like he didn't know. He didn't know what he was reading.
Yeah.
I don't think the
it was
guy
like somebody
that
handed it to him.
Because like at SoonerScoop, I don't know. It was very weird.
I'll play it for you again. Here is the mention of SoonerScoop at SoonerScoop, which was kind of weird too. He didn't even mention it was on Twitter. Apparently, people just walk around with ats in front of their names now on birth certificates. But here's that moment on the broadcast, OU versus Baylor.
In case you're wondering, Baker Mayfield's pregame. This was reported by at SoonerScoop, said to the Baylor players, quote, "You forgot who daddy is. I'm going to have to spank you today."
And see,
you have to laugh.
Not to
that.
mention that you have what's his name, Petros Papadakis doing which I've always said. We joked about this for a long time. Like serial killers, that's the voice that is in their head that's telling them to do bad things. Is Petros Papadakis' voice?
Let's just say I don't think that was the A team. After watching it back.
No, it was.
I thought Helfrich was actually pretty good.
Oh, is that who the other guy was?
Stuff that wasn't bad.
Helfrich is the analyst. Yeah, okay. I don't know why they don't need Papadakis.
Petros is awful.
Three people
it's just
in
like
a booth
cliche
is too
after
much.
cliche.
So anyway, to the game, it was the weirdest game that I can remember in quite a while. Just because OU ran 7 plays and they were up 21-7. 7 plays, and the total time in those 7 plays was barely 2 minutes. I mean, not 3 minutes. Like, it might have been 3 minutes, but you have like 7 snaps, 21 points, barely any times taken off the clock, and OU, to me, just kind of got into a mode of every time they snapped the ball, they thought they were going to get a touchdown. It was just like complete focus gone. Let's just snap the ball again and chunk it down the field, and good things are going to happen.
It was just odd in the way that everything unfolded, and especially for them to score on what as you said, the first 7 plays they scored 3 times, and it seemed like, I don't know if they took a deep breath or what happened defensively. I mean, that was obviously the biggest, I guess, takeaway out of the night was just how poor they performed defensively. And I will say that, and people don't want to hear this, but Jordan Thomas was playing hurt the entire night. I have video of him in the second series of the game going down, and he reaches for his ankle knee area. And after that, it seemed like they just kept picking on him the entire night.
Look, I think part of it was defense. Part of it was play calling, though, I thought, from Lincoln Riley. I thought he allowed Baker, you remember those chunks he had downfield, like one is Marquise Brown on first down, second down was some chunk down the field.
Yeah.
And then third down, incomplete or something, or he just didn't pick up the first down. But it was like Lincoln Riley, when he should have leaned on the running game, was up 21-7, and he didn't. They just continued to go for big plays to try and knock out blow, basically. And you saw how they started running the ball. Abdul Adams, you start running the ball. You bring in Trey Sermon, dominates the game, going away at the end of the third quarter. And if you'd done that throughout the game, Baylor wouldn't have had as many plays as they had. But here's Lincoln Riley in the post game after it was over talking about his play calling.
Yeah, and Trey ran well. I didn't do a good job, especially we hit a lot of big plays in the first quarter. I didn't do a very good job in the second quarter. I got a little impatient. Didn't put our guys in a great position. They made some adjustments defensively, and it took me too long to catch up. So I got to do better. We ran it well the second half. We moved them up front. Trey was running well, running through a lot of tackles, and really, we really stopped ourselves the second half. We fumbled on the Marquise Brown first down catch, and then I think every other drive was stopped by penalties. And had a chance, obviously, to ice it. If we don't get that last hole, the game's basically over. So, we've moved it well, but still way too many penalties, and got to do a better job.
And I thought that was his comments like right after the game was over in the post. They have a little interview room that we did, but I thought that was like magnificent that he had already self-evaluated. He didn't have to go back and look at the film. Really knew, like, okay, this is how I screwed things up as far as calling plays.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I guess you just haven't ever seen that side of Lincoln Riley, and especially after, as a head coach, everything's been good and gravy, and they haven't struggled, and they didn't really even struggle that much. I mean, my God, they scored 49 points, but at the same time, they could have won that game by 2-3 touchdowns, and even late, despite everything in the way that they played defensively, you take away a couple holding calls there late in the fourth quarter, and they probably do win by 2 touchdowns. The holding calls
they didn't break Baylor.
No.
I mean, a team that's 0-3, you get up 28-10, then you have a chance to get up 35-10, but you give Baylor life by them. The first long touchdown they hit, that was a perfect throw.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Josh, bring you in because you did the Monday Morning Idiot. That first, here's the criticism is, you don't get a pass rush on Zach Smith. That's your biggest problem. But he makes a perfect throw. Was that to Mims, that first one?
Yeah.
And then the second one was a total bust in the secondary. Jordan Thomas and Stephen Parker had terrible communication with a 2-receiver set on the boundary. Jordan Thomas hedges and thinks he's going to come up, I don't know, to cut off a slant, or maybe he thought he would jump in front of a pass and get an interception. But it was a Platt that he just let run behind him and just completely busted. And that was terrible. I mean, that's the one that I look at and just say, that was horrible defense. Josh?
Yeah, it clearly, because the problem is no matter what you're talking about, whether Jordan Thomas let his eyes lead him up to the receiver that Baylor was trying to bring him in with. I mean, like you said, they ran that little underneath route underneath him, and he either jumped to that, and he clearly shouldn't have.
Because Stephen Parker was right there.
Or he thought there was a switch, but you look at that switch, why the hell would Oklahoma make a switch in that situation? Like, there's no question to me it had to be Jordan Thomas's error. I just don't know what error he made. Like, I can't decide which one it was. But, I mean, it was so bad. And it was just – that was kind of the deal all night. And I thought, then there's no way to argue it. Like Eddie said, Jordan Thomas had an injury, obviously had a bad night. But the people that were like, oh, he's just not, he's not trying. Like, the guy was working hard. He made Mims work for a lot of those catches. But some of it is the stuff that we've talked about for years, guys. Going back, for some reason, it always seems to come back during Baylor. When Oklahoma had the whole Julian Wilson game, you would see the same stuff this night when Oklahoma would have 3rd and 4. They bring 3, and Jordan Thomas is 8 yards off of Denzel Mims.
Yeah.
Well, they just run a little a slant, and it was like that's not on Jordan Thomas. He can't do that, and you can't tell me that's Jordan Thomas's decision to play 7 yards off. He's a corner. All those corners want to come up and play man press.
And I guess they did get off the field on some third downs, but you look at the overall stats. They were 9 for 21. Baylor was 2 for 2 on fourth down, and they just couldn't get off the field when in the second and third quarters when Baylor was really making it a game, and even at I guess the beginning of the fourth quarter. But it was a very weird feel. It was one of those feels that especially when Baylor comes out of the gate in the second half and even kicks a field goal to take the lead 31-28. It's like you kind of figured that OU was going to answer, but you didn't really know how, just because of how things were playing out. And, I'd be lying if I didn't say, and it kind of crept into my mind, like, my God, the meltdown that will ensue if they lose this game.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at the play-by-play chart, just trying to kind of – it was just a disaster. I mean, it was just – this team played like an undisciplined team against Baylor. Well, that's the thing that's troubling. The penalties, there were drop passes, the decision for the onside kick, I mean, that – it didn't work. I mean, it was almost executed, but it didn't work. And for whatever purposes Lincoln Riley decided to do that, it would have been great if it did work. But it was like, why is Oklahoma trying to do all this stuff to Baylor? I mean, it's Baylor. And people are gonna, people after the game are like, well, that Baylor team, they shouldn't be undefeated, or they shouldn't have lost. They should have won. They
shouldn't
games.
be defeated.
Yeah, they shouldn't be 0-3 coming into that thing. I don't think Baylor's going to go out and beat a bunch of people moving forward. I think Oklahoma didn't play well. They made Baylor look better than they are, and that's concerning to me. I don't think Zach Smith is going to have another game like it. It's kind of like with Texas Tech and Pat Mahomes. It's like, yeah, he was a really good quarterback, and he looks like he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, but he didn't do that against everybody he played.
Yeah, he was 12 for 34 against Duke.
Yeah, and 3 interceptions.
I guess the one thing that the defense you can't come out of it saying though is they were missing a lot of guys. They need to get healthy. Getting this week, it's cliche to say, but the bye week couldn't come at a better time. You need to get guys like the guys that play Jordan Thomas and Stephen Parker. They're going to probably be okay in the long run in the scheme of things, but. Curtis Bolton, he got a little bit of pressure early in the first quarter. He's in a boot in the second half.
Well, and he's their blitzing linebacker. I mean, he's the guy they bring in to try and bring pressure from a linebacker position, and he got hurt, missed the entire second half, and all you're left with is Obo. And Josh, I know you do the Monday Morning Idiot, you go through every play, you watch it. This narrative that started about OU needs to rush Obo and stop dropping him into coverage, I watched the whole damn game. I tend to notice when guys drop into coverage. I'm sure he did drop into coverage. I haven't gone back and just and charted every play. You do that stuff, Josh. I mean, I don't. If it happened more than 5 to 7 times of him dropping into coverage in a game, I would be shocked.
Well, especially in third down. That to me, that's where you really, because it's first and second. You're trying to mix it up. You're trying to show them different things, and you're just trying. To me, especially against a team like Baylor. You're just trying to get them to a third down situation where you can pretty well dictate what they're going to do. If it's 3rd and 3, they may run, they may pass, they can do a lot. They have a lot of options at that point. But if you can get them to 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, then you're kind of forcing their hand. Especially, we talked about obviously the struggles Oklahoma had. But if you look at it, the difference between the games that Baylor used to beat Oklahoma with and the game Saturday night. It was the fact that OU did so well against the run. That didn't used to be the case. Baylor used to gash Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was great against the run. It was just they were getting killed through the air. So I think that was part of it. Now, I did the breakdown because it was something I wanted to see because I kept seeing people talk about it, and it crossed my mind a couple times. Oklahoma felt like they were being passive on third down and dropping a lot of guys and giving Smith time to look around. And so I thought, well, let's just do the numbers on this. And 3 times all game did OU rush 3 people. That means on third down, Obo didn't come 3 times out of what Eddie said, 21 opportunities. So that's not crazy. I mean, like, people want to, like, they look at my stats, and I did, they brought 3. Okay, they did that 3 times. They brought 4, I think, 12 times. And then 5 and 6 were like 2 or 3 apiece. So, I mean, that was real small. You can't do it every time. You can't blitz 6 people every time, or it's going to be really easy picking, even for a young quarterback. So you've got to balance that out.
85 plays is what Baylor ran.
Yeah.
So out of 85 plays, OU rushed 3 times.
Well, on third down. I didn't do every play. But, I mean, you might say at most you're talking 7 or 8 plays. I mean, Obo's not dropping off. And they're bringing – because, again, if the only time Obo's not coming is if they're only rushing 3.
Okay, 21 third downs. They faced 21 third downs. So 3 times out of 21, they only rushed 4 or 3.
And there was a couple times that, I thought that Obo was coming, especially up like through the A gap or something. He just didn't get there. It looked like he was.
No, you're right.
He looked like he was in slow motion a couple times.
Well, and I was talking to Gabe Eichert on the field after the game, and he said the exact same thing. And he pointed out to me, he goes, look at his leg. He said something was wrong with Obo. He's looked like he's been running in mud all night long. And he had some type of wrap on his left, like shin, calf. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, it was very humid. He could have been cramping up all night.
It was very hot down on the field. And all these sounds like excuses and stuff, but I kind of tend to think what Mike Stoops said after the game has a little bit of credence in that they've been going at it for 9 weeks, especially with the extended preseason. And it's an excuse. I know it is. But at the same time, I mean, they need a bye week to recharge the batteries, I think. And what better time than now before they really get into the meat of the Big 12 schedule?
Well, and one thing they have figured out is Kenneth Mann can get to the quarterback a little bit.
Back-to-back games.
He's a guy. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, who was the other guy, Josh? There was Calvin Thibodeau, and there was another guy, a defensive interior guy, in like the 2010 season. When they
You're thinking of Pryce Macon.
Pryce Macon is who I'm thinking of. Like, Kenneth Mann is so Pryce Macon. Like, you don't notice him at all. Nobody talks about how good he is. Then you put him in a game, and all he does is make plays for you. That's who I think. That's who I think of when I watch Kenneth Mann.
To me, I mean, like, when you look at what a 3-4 defensive end and the way OU wants to play it and their scheme, he's what it should look like. I mean, maybe, okay, don't get me wrong. Like, sure, could he be 6'5" and have a little more length? And yeah, okay. But, like, he has some burst. He's shown some ability to get after the quarterback. And I don't think there's any question the strength of his game is in run defense. But if he can create some pressure, guys, somebody brought it up the other day. He's already got more sacks than DJ Ward, and he's probably played a third of the snaps at most.
Probably. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's like showing some signs of life. And then you add Amani Bledsoe to the situation. I mean, Oklahoma's defensive end, who would have thought that maybe at defensive end, Oklahoma has their deepest unit on their defense?
You remember last week, Eddie, when Mike Stoops was leaving, we talked to him, and I didn't want to ask him with a microphone in his face. So he was walking off. I just said, hey, Mike, because somebody had asked him about Amani Bledsoe. I said, hey, Mike, who does Amani Bledsoe back up? Is it Neville or is it DJ Ward? And I said, or is it both? And he basically said, yeah, he could do either one, which makes me think that DJ Ward, you might be second team when OU plays Iowa State. Because I think DJ Ward's done some really good things, but he's good for about 1 or 2 plays a game. Like, I'm not saying that he sucks and he shouldn't play. What I'm saying is if you can split time and let him come in and just go 100 miles an hour every time, maybe you can get more plays out of DJ Ward if you've got Amani Bledsoe in there too.
We talked to Neville Gallimore about it last week, just in the fact that he was talking about adding Lampkin after him coming back off the suspension and for the Tulane game, and then adding Amani Bledsoe this week. Coming up this week, just the fact that they haven't reached any of their, their ceiling at the defensive line group. They are getting much, much better with adding Lampkin and Bledsoe full time.
It's gonna be very good for that defensive line. But they do whether it's Mark Jackson, Addison Gums, maybe you need to push him a little bit. you've got to find somebody that can be a little bit of a specialist for you as an edge rusher.
And especially if you don't know what the situation is with Curtis Bolton.
And look, you might not be as good in the run game, but on third down, and who knows, maybe Amani Bledsoe comes in and is great at that. And heck, that solves their problem if he is. But I don't know if there's a huge deal if you take Mark Jackson and put him in there for DJ Ward on long yardage situations. What's it going to hurt? DJ Ward's not really getting home all that often.
It will, yeah, and it'll be interesting just in the fact that I'd noticed that they added Mark Jackson at Sam Backer on the depth chart last week as well. That was pointed out on Twitter, so maybe he will get back on the field more. Or
maybe you take that. I mean, here's the thing: like, you almost have to take Caleb Kelly out of the game to put another edge rusher in. Like have a double edge rusher over there with Obo or something.
Caleb Kelly is in. It seems like, and Josh, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it seems like he's in a very weird spot right now. He made a lot of plays, but it's all coming from the backside, it seems like, and I think you pointed that out during the Monday Morning Idiot.
Everything is wide. Like there's nothing. It doesn't ever feel like the play's coming to Caleb Kelly. He's either fighting off a block and having to string it out along the side. Like it's kind of weird. And he made my Hot 11. I thought Caleb had a good game. It's just, I don't know, like you don't see those moments. Like I felt like we saw last year where he's just knifing through a block or something and getting to the backfield. Like I haven't seen that. I don't know. I don't know why.
You're seeing that from Kenneth Murray now, but you're not seeing it from him.
You're right.
I think it's just, he's not playing on the inside. He really is an outside linebacker who doesn't have interior run responsibilities.
Yep.
It's like, if there's a jet sweep or if there's if somebody's running outside the tackles, he's always involved in those plays. But, yeah, he's running things down instead of he's just not positioned in the middle of the action. But you know what? Their run defense has been fantastic.
Yeah. No, they have.
So it's hard to bitch about, that they're not doing this or not doing that.
It's been like, I would say it's almost been 3 quarters in which haven't been good defensively.
And you know what? When Emmanuel Beal's gone, then Caleb Kelly next year can say, "Hey, I want to play a position where I can make more plays. I want to play the will," and they would let him. If you had Caleb Kelly and Kenneth Murray a year from now as your middle linebackers, my God,
should be very good, and led by the best position coach in the country.
Odd. And who I'm about to bring up is the perfect segue from Eddie. Emmanuel Beal's playing really good football, guys. Like people don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I've told you this from the beginning. And
the Emmanuel Beal hate stem from the board.
But Josh, you and I had an argument, like in one of our earliest podcasts this year, that I thought Emmanuel Beal was a guy that you couldn't take off the field, and if it meant that Caleb Kelly had to go to the bench. And you didn't call me an idiot or anything, but you strongly felt that was a horrible decision.
I did. I remember the exact conversation. I was strongly against it, but I didn't notice him at all against UTEP. But since Ohio State, he's arguably been Oklahoma's best linebacker.
It's like, both Kenneth Murray and Caleb Kelly are better than he is just as athletes.
Sure.
But he is the best football player between those three right now.
He has a little bit of dog in him. He doesn't mind sticking his head in a tight spot. Emmanuel Beal.
Yeah.
And he's a really, when I say really good athlete, like he covers a lot of ground at linebacker. He had a play. Baylor had run off tackle. It was one of the few times Baylor got through the first line of defense, and the guy, I thought he was going to turn the corner, and Beal beat him out there and knocked him out of bounds. I think it ended up being about a 4-yard carry when it probably was 12 to 15 if he doesn't get there.
It's bizarre that we're sitting here and everyone on the board and all Sooner fans are so distraught over the defense, yet we're all sitting here for 20 minutes now talking about how much we love this defense or aspects of this defense.
They just got to be better.
They're not. This is... Like right now, point blank statement, I'm going to say this defense is better than it was a year ago. Even after that crap, that we saw.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt.
It's a better defense than it was a year ago.
There were points last year where I did not believe that they could get a stop. They couldn't get off the field on third down. Now, this year, you at least, it's like, well, if they throw to the right side, Motley can maybe break up a ball.
It was awful, but they were still just 9 of 21 on third down.
I was surprised to see that.
A year ago, they would have been like 18 of 21 or something.
They would have been, realistically, probably like 16 of 23. And probably you maybe get pushed to the brink of getting beat. And, I guess that they were in a way, but that also there had to be a lot of, I don't know if it's lucky, but, they had to recover an onside. They had to go through a 2-minute drill to score. They had to get a holding call to get the ball back.
I will say this. I see why OU's coaches were so complimentary of Baylor's coaches. I thought their defensive coordinator was really good.
Yeah.
He did a lot of good stuff in that game.
They have. Baylor, they got, 5 starters back last week?
They're not lacking for talent. Like that team maybe those guys are going to make that big of a difference. Maybe I'm being too harsh with the whole they still suck, they're not going to beat anybody stance, but you just watch that team, you look at them, the eye test. Seeing them down on the field, that's as good looking a football team as I've seen all year, including Ohio State.
They got some dudes. There's no doubt about that.
Receiver, they blow everyone away.
The Mims guy's really good.
Yeah, he's an NFL first rounder. Like he's special.
Did Josh jog my memory? Was he a highly rated guy? I don't really remember him coming out of high school.
He wasn't. He was a big-time track guy, and I think I won't claim that I know his story real well because OU kind of peripherally talked to him, but it was never that serious, so I didn't follow him that closely. But he was a guy that was a big-time track guy, kind of came on late in recruiting, and a lot of people noticed him. And, it's one of those things you look back and you're like, he's 6'4" and he can really run. How hard was that evaluation?
Yeah.
And it's, but you look at it through the years, that's the kind of guys Baylor has killed it with. Guys that people, for whatever reason, they liked one guy better or another guy better, or, this guy was more well-known early on, and then they just took that guy and were like, yeah, we'll beat you with the faster guy. And that's what they did. But, God, Kerry, you were talking about Baylor and how many games they're going to win. Their next 3 weeks are at Kansas State, week off, at Oklahoma State, and then home to West Virginia. That's God. It's going to be really hard.
They might not have
start 0-7.
They might be back to doing Wildcat quarterback full time by the time they get there.
And
look, I think Zach Smith's a nice player. He's got a good arm. Actually, looks taller than he did to me a year ago, but he's not mobile.
Mm-mm.
If you can get, it's going to be really interesting to see. When they play Kansas State, when they play West Virginia, when they play Oklahoma State, how much pressure can those guys get on them? Because I didn't see a particularly great physical-looking offensive line for Baylor.
No.
There was, I guess it's easy for me to say this, but just from the field level, it looked like there was a couple times I thought OU was going to get to the quarterback. A couple times I thought Obo was getting there, and all of a sudden it looked like he was held, but I don't really know. It was kind of suspicious that Baylor wasn't called for a hold all night. No, he was called for like 7.
Yeah, they were a lot.
That was weird.
Yeah, there were definitely times where guys, had Obo by the shoulder. You saw that just on the game, watching the game.
Oh, yeah. People kept asking me through the IDI, how many holds did, they miss? I'm like, guys, there's a hold every single snap.
Right.
I know it's a cliche, but that's just a reality. It's going to happen every single time. The weird part was that every time they noticed a hold in the game, literally was Oklahoma, and never once saw one from Baylor. But at the same time, any of those calls against Oklahoma, they were right. They were holds. There's no doubt about it. There was one where Drew Samia, it was, I think in the third quarter when OU was trying to get something going, Drew Samia damn near had the guy in a headlock.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even close. So, that's one of those things where, I understand that there should have been some holds on Baylor, but that doesn't negate that all the ones against Oklahoma were legit.
It will be interesting to talk to Bill Beatembo this week and get his take on that performance out of the offensive line, because just looking at your post-game grades, Josh, it did not seem like Drew Samia had a banner day.
You could tell it during the game. It was awful.
It's one of those things where I thought maybe he was kind of turning the corner. I really liked him against UTEP. I thought he had a really good day that day. I mean, you know who they're playing, but even so, it seemed good. Since then, he's struggling in pass protection, and he'll have one great play. Like he had a couple where he went head up with the Draymond Jones kid from Ohio State that I think is maybe Ohio State's most talented defensive lineman, and he did great. And then you'd see him just miss, he'd be coming across and he'd miss an easy block. And you're like, what are you doing? It seemed like he and Wren were having some problems with communication. There was a couple when the Taylor Young kid would shoot a gap, and it looked like they should have had him accounted for if he chose to come, and they just didn't. And he ran, that was the first sack on Baker Mayfield when Young, I think it was on a third down, just ran right down the A gap. And Mayfield never even had a chance to look downfield.
It's interesting because with the offensive line, there was so much competition in camp, and you remember you heard about Creed Humphrey. They were healthy. You had Cody Ford and Ben Powers battling for a job along with Drew Samia. Bobby Evans. We all knew Orlando Brown was going to be that guy, but once they said, okay, we're going to redshirt all these freshmen, and they lose Cody Ford, it's like everybody knows that they have their jobs and there's no one that's going to come take it from them. So it's like they need Cody Ford to get healthy again. So if Drew Samia is playing like that, they can yank him out of the game and put Ben Powers over there or Cody Ford. I'd
say, how would that work? Do you think they would slide Powers and leave Ford left?
Ford slides and Powers stays left.
Okay.
I thought it was the other way around.
Is it the other way around?
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, no.
They need to get Cody Ford back on the field.
Yeah. I mean,
Powers and Ford want to walk around with like a bam bam mallet and just hit you over the head. Like they're just violent. They're just extremely physical. As to where Samia is a little more technical.
If anything, I mean, and it was talked about a lot. I mean, the bye week, Eddie mentioned the injuries that are out there. Will Johnson, I think that there's going to be there's a good chance that he returns. I don't think he's going to. It's not going to be. From what I'm hearing, it's not going to be one of these things where he has to give up football because of too many concussions. From what I've heard, signs are pointing toward him making a return, even for the Iowa State game. Robert Barnes, we'll see. The one concern that I have is probably with Jordan Thomas, and this is going to be one of those things like you should have said it on the board. And this is just kind of stuff that I'm feeling my way through, even before we did the podcast, but. It wouldn't surprise me if Jordan Thomas misses some weeks here. And that means that it seems like Trey Norwood is the guy that they're most comfortable bringing in right away because he was the first guy off the bench. I mean, Trey Brown has done some good things, but it seems like Norwood is the guy that they go to.
It's interesting. I thought it was interesting, though, that when the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, after Baylor recovers the fumble, they went with Trey Brown on the left side and moved Parnell Motley over.
Okay.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if that was just a reaction to Baylor always putting Mims on the left, and they just didn't want to put Trey Norwood over there, or I guess on Oklahoma's right, Baylor's offensive left. But I couldn't decide if they were like, well, we're just going to put our best corner on Mims and just call it good, or if that was, hey, Norwood got beat for the touchdown. I don't know, but I think it's interesting. And boy, when I've watched. Brown's the one that stood out to me, and you guys know I was always tough on Trey, but watching him in some of the mop-up duty in late games, he flashes, man. He's got some ability.
It helps when you can run the way the kid can.
Speed,
he really can.
His speed makes up for a lot of a lot of issues because we saw him at the Ill Speed Challenge, and just that was the first time I saw him just go flat out, and my first thought is I'm watching him. It's like one of the few times in my head. I'm literally saying, holy shit. That guy
Well, it's not a coincidence.
So fast.
Two of the three guys that were in that, Ill Speed Challenge, people might, and even I did while I was there at that point, kind of roll my eyes at this, like, this is really dumb. But at the same time, Robert Barnes, Trey Brown, and Justin Broyles, two of the three have played a good amount of snaps this year.
And I'll say, Robert Barnes is the one guy I don't really get a good handle on. I would think that he would be. It was weird. Well, not weird, but I think it might have been telling that Robert Barnes did not make the trip because, to me, that means they that you're close, but they want you to focus on treatment and just getting better. So it kind of worries me, but at the same time, it kind of makes you feel like they might be close. If they're that concerned about, if they think you're 3 weeks out, you're just coming on the trip to get the experience of going on the trip. If you're day to day and you're real close, they're more likely to say, okay, let's leave him at home, let him rest, get treatment, so he's close to 100%.
I would say, I guess you could counter argue that just saying that, they brought Cody Ford, they brought Will Johnson, and I almost think that's like a leadership thing. But then you look at a guy like Matt Romar, he didn't make the travel
that was
list.
weird.
So I don't really know how they differentiate who comes and who doesn't.
All right. So I think what we take from Baylor mostly is stop being a mess, Oklahoma. Run the ball better, especially when you got a lead. Don't leave your defense when you've already. And I'm not saying they left them hanging to dry, but when you've scored, you had 3 drives that are a total of 7 plays. It's probably best to kind of run the ball, and Lincoln Riley didn't do that. But it was just the penalties. The Marquise Brown fumble. That was contributed to Baylor coming back a second time. It's like things that you had to do to let Baylor come back into the game. They did. They
got really lucky that Marquise Brown fumble didn't end up being something bigger than what it was at the time.
Yeah,
because that a really, really, really good team that probably gets you beat. That kind of fumble, that when you're moving the ball, trying to get back in the game, extend a lead.
And that was before they put Trey Sermon in the game, right?
Yeah, that was still in the third quarter. I believe the Marquise Brown fumble led to the 46-yard field goal that Baylor took the lead on, if I remember correctly.
That's right. That's right.
But basically, you come out of this as a mess, and Baker Mayfield talked about just that game and just how bizarre it was.
Yeah, I think it was a good reality check for us, and we say it all the time around here: all gas, no brakes. And so you can never let your foot off the pedal, especially playing a team like that they could score in a second. It doesn't matter their record or anything. It's still a high-powered offense that Baylor's had for a while, and so you can never take your foot off the gas. And so I think for us, it's just about, it doesn't matter who we're playing, what the score is, down distance. You got to go do your job at a high level. And so I'd say that's the most disappointing thing for us tonight was just not being consistent enough.
And here's a little bit more from Baker on the struggles.
Up and down for us offensively. Shot ourselves in the foot too much. Wasn't my best game, but I don't think any of the other guys would say the same for the first half. We established the line of scrimmage second half and were able to run the ball well, so I didn't even need to throw, and that's good for me. But we need to play like that, physical like that from the get-go. And I think once we settled in and realized that you can't take anybody lightly, I think we played better.
And I think the thing that was kind of troubling for me about the run game early was you have that 99-yard touchdown from Abdul Adams, and then you still go back into throw it 50, 60 yards down the field mode. And it was good to see they finally got Abdul Adams going there before halftime. Then he came back out in the third quarter. I thought the biggest – and look, I understand people say, well, why don't you have Trey Sermon in there more as well as he played? I'm on record as saying I love bringing him in the second half after the offensive line's already beat on a defensive line. So I thought he should have put him in there. Instead of putting Marcellus Sutton in there in the second half, Josh, I thought they should have put Trey Sermon in there to instead of him. But then they bring Abdul Adams in after Marcellus Sutton. He starts running up and down the field. And it was close to the end of the third before they brought Sutton in there. And then he really was just ready to destroy that defense.
Do you really – I was wondering about that. Do you really think that was the plan? Like, clearly we're going to wait. Like, Sermon's going to be our closer. We're going to bring him in when they're tired. Like, I know it worked out that way, but was that truly what they intended to do? Because if so, I mean, I love it. It's evil genius stuff.
Yeah.
But that's ballsy as well to be like, we feel like this guy's a difference maker, but at the same time, we're going to wait until the fourth quarter to actually use him like that. That's kind of, we have Clayton Kershaw, but we're going to hold off throwing him till the 8th or 9th. Like, what? Really? I mean, And again, I'm not saying I don't really want to make the comparison of Kershaw to Sermon, but I'm just saying from a perspective of you feel like this guy can help you win a game. The game is getting tight, and you're not going to bring him on until the fourth quarter? That's pretty gutsy.
It'd be like taking like Derrick Henry if you were Alabama and doing that. I mean, nobody in their right mind would do that. You just put Derrick Henry out there at the beginning and let him go. But,
so you think it just worked out that way?
Well, what I'm saying is, as a true freshman, I love it. I mean, he had one game where he started. He had 3 carries for -1 yards. That was against Tulane. It didn't look good. I mean, to me, your run game works really well so far. Starting Abdul Adams, he's such a good, patient runner. Mm-hmm. I mean, he has great vision through the hole.
I love the way that he protects the ball.
Yeah, he lets his blocks develop.
I guess that's kind of not right.
True.
The way that
because he had against Ohio State.
Right. I interrupted you though.
He's learned. I think that affected him. Like he really is taking care of the ball now. But I love his style to start out a game because he is going to he's not running through massive holes like develop it toward as the game goes along. Like when Trey Sermon came in and started running, the offensive line was blowing Baylor off the ball. Like there were giant Mack truck holes for him to run through.
It was very impressive watching it from, and I would hope that the sights and sounds kind of portrayed this, but the holes that Trey Sermon was getting, and he was breaking tackles. I mean, I think that Pro Football Focus came out and said he had 12
broken tackles, like 11 carries
on 12 carries, which is just insane. That has to be one of the best fourth quarters or just simply quarters by a freshman running back at Oklahoma ever, which kind of almost. I think we had the running back rotation pegged just completely wrong at the beginning of the year. I mean, isn't it a bigger story that what they're getting out of Abdul Adams and Trey Sermon as opposed to what they're not getting out of Rodney Anderson? Or is it the exact opposite?
I mean, I will say what surprised me about the running backs is Abdul Adams is better than I thought he was. I thought he was really good. I thought he was a better than average running back. I'm not saying that he's, all-American type, but Abdul Adams could go to any SEC. He could go to LSU and be their starting running back.
He's really, really good. We should have.
I'm not saying that he's going to be, Saquon Barkley, but he's behind a really good offensive line. He can run the ball against anybody.
And I suppose we should have listened to the coach. It was like one of the first times that we should have listened to the coaches, and that
when they said that he had
Abdul Adams. Yeah, he had a terrific spring. He carried it over into the preseason.
Let's not give him too much credit. They still said, we really don't know who our best running backs are.
It's true.
And we're going to find out when the season starts.
He has been really, really good.
And they did talk up Jeff Mead.
Well,
how many snaps did Jeff Mead get, would you say? Maybe
less than
10?
8? I didn't see him. And at 6'6", he's hard to miss.
Somebody posted on the board that he was in for the Abdul Adams touchdown, maybe?
The 99-yarder?
Yeah, the 99-yarder, but I can't remember when he was in there. Or
maybe perfect play. You could be like, we were going to leave you in that whole series, Jeff, all the 99 yards, buddy, and Abdul just took it from you. Sorry,
Some
Chief.
people would say that's a sign.
And by the way, did A.D. Miller touch the field at all?
No, he didn't, but he was in uniform for the first time all year. He traveled with the team and everything, so.
But before we move forward, guys, Kerry earlier rightly brought up that he was big on Emmanuel Beal leading into the season. Can we really talk about Abdul Adams and not give it up to Josh? Because who was right there leading, waving the Abdul Adams pom-poms? This guy right here. Never lost faith. Believed he would be the starter.
Golf clap for Josh.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's just take a moment to accept the one time I'm actually right about something.
You can pay me royalties because I believe that I'm the board stockholder of Abdul Adams and Jordan Smallwood stock. So.
Oh, you do. You have some Smallwood. You still have some Smallwood stock, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
He did have one pass that he could have caught that he didn't.
Yeah, that was another
like down too. Wasn't
it was. Well, it was. I think that was before the 3rd and 8 before they ran the ball with Sermon.
Guys, something funny? We're having the wide receiver conversation. It just sparked me. I talked to someone kind of close to the Arkansas State program. They are super excited about Dahu Green. They think he's going to be a star.
I don't think his talent has ever been the question, has it? It's always been.
I would say Arkansas State doesn't see a lot of people like Dahu Green, though.
That's probably true too.
Like Oklahoma has 3 of those guys right now.
Yeah.
A.D. Miller, Jeff Mead, and then Dahu Green. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Oklahoma hasn't always had those type of. It's just that those guys with that size never tend to work out because they're not athletic enough.
It was kind of weird what happened with Jeff Bedett on Saturday. He has almost takes the opening kickoff to the house.
Yeah.
Fumbles the ball to set up
to lead up the 99
to lead up to the 99-yarder, and then catches the 1st and 25 touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield. But between those 2 times, it was like I actually turned to Dylan Buckingham, who I was standing with down on the sidelines shooting the game, and it's like, what happened with Jeff Bedett? Did I miss something? Did he get hurt? And then all of a sudden he caught 35-yard touchdown pass, and the rest is history. But that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, his playing time has been, ever since Ohio State, it has been sporadic, and I don't think it should be. I mean, I think you should be planning your offense around 2 guys, really, in the passing. Well, 3 guys. Mark Andrews, CeeDee Lamb, and Jeff Bedett. I mean, I think those are... We talk about learning about running backs. I think what we learned about the receivers is those are the 3 best receivers on this team. And I don't think it's even close.
Every time CeeDee Lamb does something incredible, and he had the catch that he had with the bobble, and then ends up, I don't remember how far it was. I think it was probably 35, 40-yard pass reception, but that was unbelievable. That's just another one of those plays. It's like, Jesus, he's a freshman. This guy's going to be unreal.
To me, I mean, is there any question that you have your 5 offensive linemen, you have Baker Mayfield, you have whoever you want to start at running back, and then you have Dimitri Flowers and the 3 guys we're talking about. There's no question that's your best starting lineup.
Yeah.
That's your best 11 that's not even close.
And I'd like to see a little bit more Michael Jones. He's kind of fallen in the background a little bit. I'll just say that Marquise Brown, his ball security, it worries me. And his ability,
you want him scoring or stepping out of bounds,
and his ability to catch balls in one-on-one situations, I'm not sold on.
One of the deep balls that you talked about earlier, Kerry, it was just a flat-out drop.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad throw. I think that Lincoln Riley and Baker Mayfield can live with that throw 9 times out of 10.
There was one throw I remember where he just stopped running.
That was weird.
And Baker chunked it. I swear, if he would have just ran all out, he would have had a really good chance at catching that ball.
That was really weird. That was almost like he didn't know the ball was coming towards him. I don't know how you couldn't know that, but that was very strange.
It was just one of those things where he thought, okay, I'm way down the field. There's no way Baker's throwing it this far.
Yeah.
That was the back-to-back plays, Kerry. You talked about them earlier, where Baker threw the deep one on first down, and he underthrew it a little bit. Brown probably should have made the catch anyway, but it did let the corner get involved and at least have a hand in the play.
I agree. Yeah, it was a little
and then they came right back the next play, and literally, as I'm saying, I don't know what's going on with Baker Mayfield's deep balls. He chucks one like 65 yards down the field, and you couldn't tell from the TV broadcast. It looked like he just overthrew him. But the announcers kind of said the same thing you guys are saying. Hey, it looked like he just stopped on the route there. And from what you saw on the broadcast, it looked like he just gave up about the time the ball hit because it was 15 yards beyond him.
Let's listen to Baker Mayfield talk a little bit about Trey Sermon, kind of what he brought to the offense against Baylor.
You know, how special he is, but especially the point in the game that he came in and took over. At that point in time, you wear a defense down with the run game, and we had been doing that. But for him to come in fresh legs and, really break a lot of tackles and make plays, we blocked well, but he also was breaking a lot of tackles, and that's something that why he's so special. It takes a lot more than just one guy to bring him down.
And here's Baker just on the running backs overall.
A lot of it, it's just a combination of our line, the play calls, and the guys we have. Joe and Samaje are 2 very talented and special guys, but the guys we have in the backfield they're not slouchy either. So, I mean, they're special guys, and no, not everybody knows who they are, and they haven't had the same amount of reps as Joe and Samaje did, but those guys are talented too, and that's why they're at University of Oklahoma.
And I would just say this, we're learning a lot more about the receivers. Guys are starting to kind of separate themselves a little bit. We can talk about when you should play guys and how much they should play. I feel like as long as they stay healthy, talking about Adams and Sermon, they're fine at running back. They've got it figured out. And they may have to get in a situation where somebody sprains an ankle or something and Rodney Anderson has to carry more than we've seen him so far. or Marcellus Sutton has to do more, or Demetri Flowers has to do more. But I can't see them having. I feel a lot better about their running back situation than I would like if I'm at Oklahoma State and I basically just have Justice Hill.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it goes back to the offensive line, just in that Rodney Anderson probably scored, and this isn't to take away from Trey Sermon. He was magnificent. He probably scores on a couple of those plays with the holes that they were opening up in the fourth quarter.
I don't know. There was some really good tightrope work he was doing on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean that was absolutely incredible. And that's why I said I'm not trying to take anything away from him, because the two runs that he had on the sidelines, and specifically the one that he actually scored on, those were really, really, really good.
I'm going to ask Trey Sermon tonight if Rodney Anderson could have made all the runs that he made.
He'll probably say yes.
That Eddie said that, yeah, you're nothing special.
That's fine.
I think we got to stop screwing around probably for a little bit in the interview room. I think the "Who's your daddy" thing has got a little target on our backs with the administration.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want Baker Mayfield to start a Twitter fight with a Dallas media personality on Twitter, because that was probably our doing too.
We like to have fun in the interview stuff. It's just like with the fashion stuff. I think the players enjoy that, but I'm going to say this. Until we get through this bye week and they go out and just, I say until after Texas, we probably need to just mind our P's and Q's.
I don't think we've done anything outside of the P's and Q's, because we could get real weird if we wanted.
We get pretty weird as it is. I enjoy it, and I think the fans enjoy it, but I'm just saying. Josh is probably wondering what the hell we're doing at practice right now.
No, I mean, I feel like there might be something I've missed, because when I think of it, like almost everything you guys do that's been a little off the beaten path lately, everybody's loved the fashion stuff.
We get a little side eye from people in charge.
Really?
Yeah, I sense it.
I pray and ask for forgiveness every night, so it should be okay.
Easy, because I know most of those people listen to this podcast.
What? I'm Catholic. I can go to confession, can't I?
I don't know that you did anything that you need to go to confession over.
Well, I did anyways, and especially so everybody on the board. I've tried to keep my cursing down this week, so hopefully, hopefully your son doesn't listen to it.
Did you get a complaint about somebody's kid?
He did. I read it too.
I missed it.
Just don't raise your son to be a bitch. That's all I'm saying.
God,
Jesus. It's one of those things. You have to know what things are intended for.
You have to apologize for attacking people's kids if this turns into a letter writing campaign.
I will attack him if we need to.
Well, we know Eddie will fight the kid. We know that's fact.
That's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. He might be a little too big, though.
The pod is not intended for 8-year-old kids. It's just not. Like that's not the way I think any of us want to do this. I think that's not the way our listeners like it. Like I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be 13 to sign up for a website.
Well, the bigger deal is
there's a whole Silicon Valley episode about that.
If the kid can understand what we're talking about at whatever age he is, we probably need to get him on the pod.
What specifically were they upset about?
Profanity and showing an image. He said that I can't recall it, because I think it was more of a troll job than an actual serious statement. Because
probably, I mean, that's why I say very scared of no F-bombs on the podcast, because I think most kids will hear a shit or a damn or a hell from their parent.
Kids don't need to be listening to this. This should be R-rated.
We are not shaping the minds.
By the way,
I won't say anything.
Yeah, you need to stop. I think I haven't even thought about looking at ratings and reviews until we just started having this conversation. Guys, huge bombshell that came out today regarding the NCAA and college basketball recruiting. An OSU assistant was involved in it. Basically, a sting operation by the FBI.
Associate head coach and recruiting coordinator. Lamont Evans.
Bad. It's bad. And it was pretty much determined that one of the kids, he was recruiting to OSU throughout their doing this deal. Wow. This is something. The FBI has now set up a support line, a tip line for people to call in and report other things. But the fact that the FBI did this has got to send shockwaves, not through just basketball, but I would think football as well, Josh.
No, that was the first thing that I thought of. And Josh, you can expound on it more than I can.
Oh, guys, yeah, this is one of those things. I'm guessing, obviously, every basketball coach in the country that has any dirty laundry, their butthole is puckered right now. There's no question. Football, it's one of these things where, and I tweeted about it because this is something you guys know I've beaten this drum for a long time. Football is moving in this direction where they're getting all these sneaker companies involved with all these elite, 7-on-7 camps. And obviously Rivals has done Under Armour for years and does Adidas now. And I think those are a little bit different, but I'm not going to sit here and act like, there's not some connection between shoe companies and the kids during those events. There are. That's just the reality. But I think it's like everybody just ignored the fact that, oh, yeah, AAU has pretty much ruined high school basketball and the recruiting process, but let's get 7-on-7 going over here with Nike and Adidas. That's going to work out really well. And it's going to go down the same road, and frankly, it's already started to.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I don't know how this is going to affect Adidas. I mean, they've got a couple of big schools in football, A&M, Nebraska. I don't know who else they really have. UCLA just switched to Under Armour recently. I don't know if, can A&M, are they going to go to Adidas and say, look, our contract is null and void because this happened, we can't be associated with you? I'm sure they could probably get out of their contract if they wanted to. But Adidas, I'm sure, is going to say, hey, this was a rogue deal. This guy went out and did this without our knowledge. He's fired. We're going to have internal, investigations, make sure stuff like this never happens again. I'm sure all that stuff will go on. But, I mean, we're talking $150,000. I mean, did you see that number? Another case was $100,000. I mean, to me, that is unbelievable that you're paying that much money for these kids. And because we've all kind of heard dollar values in football, like what people have said has been, and most of the time when you hear dollar values, it's nowhere near that type of money. But now I'm scared thinking, God, is it even worse in football?
I can tell you, I think I've told you guys this story off the air, and it's someone close to me, so I won't put everything out there, but there was a major program with a major, let's say in the last couple of years, a first-round draft pick. And I heard very particular numbers about it from someone that was very, very well sourced on it. And, I mean, I wouldn't put it in that range, but it was north of $50,000.
Yeah.
And, I mean, so you're talking – and then if you go back to the Cam Newton stuff at Auburn, what that all –
yeah, you heard dollar
figures. Which basically everyone knows happened and nothing ever came of it. Like, we all just accept that that's a fact and nothing changes.
Well, you're in this position with the NCAA where it's like, okay, they get so, it's almost like, people crying wolf. They get so many, I'm sure they get so many people being turned in left and right. He did this, and then they check into it, and they're just chasing their own tails. I'm sure the FBI will find that out now with this tip line. Like, they've probably got a call already from some assistant, at New Mexico that turned in Utah for something he heard that they did and probably really has no evidence or any truth to it. So I'm sure the NCAA just kind of hit a wall at one point and was just like, what are we going to do? We can't police all this stuff. We can't. It's like when the Laramie Tunsil stuff came out. It's like it's always taken a smoking gun in order for something to happen with the NCAA because they just seem to be so overwhelmed. They're out of their depth. This is not what they do. But you come down to the FBI, and how telling is it that the FBI didn't even tell the NCAA that this was going on? This
wouldn't have gotten done if the NCAA was in charge of this. They needed the FBI to get involved to actually put some feet to the fire, I think, and actually make progress. And I
mean, we're talking about hidden cameras and stuff like that.
It makes me excited thinking about the wiretaps and the FBI getting involved. And even the FBI, like on the Facebook feed today during the press conference, it was like, oh, they got that. They know this. Well, and it's like, shit, there are some people that are going to be. And now you see some reports out of Louisville saying that there is more big news to come. There's a lot of people speculating that Rick Pitino is going to step down in the morning. It's tremendous, and I can't wait to see somebody like Rick Pitino burn in this fire that's about to come.
The thing that I found it was interesting is, like, I don't know if there was a coach 1 or a coach, but like the coach, it went all the way to like coach 12 and coach 13. Yeah. So like, who else is going to be implicated in this? So like the Department of Justice, and it's like with everything else, when the government law agencies are involved in something, like this was a celebration for them today. This was a press conference that they held. I can't remember the opening statement that they made. It was something about the madness isn't just in March when it comes to, it
was a celebration of
bribery and whatever. Like, yes, I mean, it's like when you see all these, we all love like Breaking Bad and all these movies, but you always see like these officers when they make a big drug bust, they have a press conference and all the drugs are right behind them.
Yeah, taking a picture with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's guys get promoted off of this stuff. So there's someone that got really ambitious in the FBI and said, you know what? If I want a case that really deserves or is going to get a lot of attention, let's take down some NCAA basketball people. There's probably somebody that was, a fan, or maybe it was somebody that spent too much time on rivals' message boards and had seen all the stuff at Kentucky. I mean, the thing that's most surprising to me is that Kentucky was not involved in this.
Or Baylor. Like Scott Drew's like, he's probably calling Dave Bliss on how to bury bodies today.
Stop it. Just let the man rest.
Dave Bliss?
Yes.
I'm with
I don't know if we can do that.
I don't think you get to rest. You do some shit like that, you got to burn.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's insane though. Like just reading all of the, and I guess it is because the FBI is putting all this stuff out that it's like, holy shit, this is huge.
But then you're dealing also with like connecting the dots. Like, okay, this Lawson guy was with Frank Martin, who was with Brad Underwood.
Yeah.
Like, how much did Brad Underwood do with this stuff? And
something tells me that Brad Underwood has a lot. There's a lot more to come out on this, because when you look at like the South Carolina with Boynton, and then that goes down to Lamont Evans, there's something weird, and this would completely be looking into it, and it's coming from an OU podcast, so it's easy to connect the dots there, but maybe it gives credence and reason why Brad Underwood got out of Stillwater so quickly. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I don't think any of these guys knew that they were being investigated.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I don't think like they were waiting for the other shoe to drop, because when it's the FBI, you don't know what's going on. I mean, they're not interviewing coaches and interviewing. I mean, it's just. I mean, that's big time.
It's the tip of the iceberg, I think, for a lot of people.
Kerry, the point you brought up earlier where you were saying, what does it say that they didn't even involve the NCAA? What is worse? The fact that they don't see any way the NCAA is a useful source on their member institutions, or the fact that they're afraid the NCAA would screw up their own investigation?
Oh, I think it's the latter as much as anything.
I do too, but like, what is more damning of the entire governing body? They're both embarrassing.
Well, there's a reason that people are cheating like they are, because they know they can get away with it, and the NCAA is a powerless entity in terms of enforcing major recruiting violations.
Well, and that's why, like you said earlier, this is a great case for an FBI agent, because it's a bunch of coaches that were being loose and fast with all the way they were doing things, because they're like, the NCAA's never going to catch us. They can't manage all of us. And then you get a guy that FBI that has access to all sorts of entities, then, I'm sure it wasn't that hard for them to track this stuff down.
And guess what? It's institutions that have compliance departments that just don't care, that don't do their job, they don't give a shit, that allowed that to happen, to where all this stuff is going on, all these arrangements are being made. What was it? I saw something. One of the people involved in this was like fired for running up like $42,000 in Uber bills on a client or something like that. One of these agents that was involved in this.
If it's gotten to the point though, if you're I guess is the old term street agent for this types of stuff, or a real agent, any type of agent, runner,
yeah,
that type of person, just kind of a scumbag. Let's just put it out there.
No, I mean, it's
a very shady line of business.
I think I don't think it's really any different than it's ever been. And I think you would just watch He Got Game, and that's pretty much still the way that it is with Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Might have to watch Blue Chips tonight just to refresh my memory on how to really break.
We were playing the Pete Bell speech this morning. It's
I watched the speech this morning. Yeah, I was watching on YouTube. That such an underrated movie. I think Blue Chips is hilarious and kind of awful all at the same time.
I think a lot of people know I went kind of on my rant. I know we're wrapping up here, and Josh has got to get out of here. I kind of went. I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. And I'm not bringing it to this podcast really. I am, I guess, but I'm not going to go on any rants on SoonerScoop. On the radio, we talked about it this morning, just because it's been such a discussion with sports and Trump and politics and Anthem and stuff like that. And I was talking this morning, Josh. I do think this has some implications in colleges, and I'm not talking about whether guys have the right to do this or they should do it, they shouldn't do it, whether it's whether it is unpatriotic or a horrible thing against the military. No, I'm not getting into any of that. But what I'm saying, Josh, is athletes all across the country, NBA, NFL. I mean, I don't know if you saw what LeBron said yesterday in his press conference. I thought he was fantastic. We all know the Popovich stuff has been going on. But I think the one ramification this has on colleges and college coaches is really right now, you better not, even if I know that there are a lot of college coaches that probably voted for Donald Trump, but it's just like with Robert Kraft and Dan Gilbert with the Cavs, the owner of the Cavs. Like, you have to dissociate yourself from anything dealing with Trump right now. If it will cost you recruits right now, if you're seeing, that's what Donald Trump did to the sports world. He has become toxic now. So, like, I think I was just thinking of it from a recruiting perspective, like. And we all know, we know coaches that, have OU stayed, I think, at Trump's Doral when they were at what bowl game was that? That would have been the college football playoff. Yeah. Like, they stayed at Trump's hotel. So, we've seen coaches that, and we know, which coach is kind of conservative, which are most coaches. I would say most coaches are conservative. But you have to distance yourself from any kind of political stance or being involved at all or supporting Donald Trump right now if you're a coach. Don't you agree, Josh?
Oh, I absolutely would. I mean, guys, these are not – this is the era we live in. 20 years ago, this stuff would have happened, and I don't know how much the high school kids would have noticed it because it's not on Twitter. It's not right in front of them all day, every day. Can't avoid it. They are part of it, and they get it. And, of course, when – whether you want to talk about NFL or college, you're talking about 80 to 85% of your, what do you want to call it, workforce? I mean, your players, your participants are black. So you're going to have a huge number of people that really care about this. And I don't think I follow literally hundreds of either players, recruits, whatever on Twitter, and I can't think of any of them that came out and were like, you know what, Donald Trump's speaking to me right now. He's hitting my notes. So, and I don't mean that. I'm not trying to upset anybody politically. I'm trying to walk a very center line right here. But at the same time, coaches, they cannot align themselves with him. They just cannot, because they are going to alienate themselves from the players they seek to get into their programs. And the same with the NFL. People are like, well, why did all the owners come out with all these announcements? Because they have to go recruit free agents. Yeah, they need to be able to say, we stood up to him. We didn't, we're on your side in this thing. And that maybe how they feel in their heart of hearts? Like you said, I would say probably not in a lot of cases, but they have to do that. And in college, I don't know that you're going to get Lincoln Riley come out and make a statement about it or anybody in the athletic department, but they sure as hell are not going to advocate for it. They're going to stay as far away from it as they can because that's the most neutral thing you can do right now, because anything, even, dipping a toe towards Donald Trump, I guarantee will hurt them in recruiting.
Yeah, because people are going to point it out. And the other thing about it is like you said, kids keep their heads down. Even if they do, Trump is in their space. Like, he's doing this all on Twitter. Like, he's saying these things where they can see it, and they are seeing other athletes. They're seeing LeBron. They're seeing I don't know. I mean, football players, whoever they follow, I don't know who you would put as the face of advocacy in the NFL on Twitter for this stuff. But, I mean, even when he came, you saw all the NFL players come out and react to that, the whole sons of bitches thing. Like, players see that on their timeline, too, because they're following the athletes. They can't ignore what's going on and what's being said.
You don't want me to add in on any of this.
Yeah, because Eddie's just going to attack people.
Yeah, no, I would attack one person.
And they're going to take it as an attack on all of them.
Well, no, I mean, he's the leader of the free world. So
No, I know who you're going at, and I'm saying the people who support him are going to read
for him
that
or support him.
Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody.
It's just he's just not presidential. I'm sorry.
Unhinged.
Triggered.
And that makes me triggered. I'm triggered that he's triggered.
Okay, ratings and reviews time.
Josh, is there anything recruiting
wise that we should hit on? Yeah.
No.
I assume coaches are probably trying to get a little bit further out this weekend.
I'm really excited for the game that we're going to see.
Yeah, obviously, I guess people don't really know. Eddie and I will be at Union and Owasso on Friday night. Get to see Pat Fields, Jordan Kelly. Obviously, Union has some young talent. And, we'll be there and see Josh Proctor. And maybe we'll catch up with him after, see what he has to say. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but that door just doesn't seem quite ready to close, in my opinion. So we'll keep watching that and see what happens. But I think there's more notable. How would you say that? Notability?
Notable.
A game is more notable than you would think. But on Thursday night, I'll actually go see Darrell Simpson. So that kind of runs down my schedule. I get to see the big offensive line commitment from Dallas on my way up to Oklahoma. So that's obviously going to be a good weekend for me. But as far as recruiting, yeah, you're going to see OU venture out. I expect, I think Oklahoma, from what I've understood, the one coach I'm pretty sure I know where he'll be is I believe Dennis Simmons is going to go down to see Jaquaylin Crawford, who has missed the first 5 weeks of the season with an injury and is now apparently going to be back and ready to go this weekend. So I ran into Simmons a couple of weeks ago seeing Travion Johnson. Now he's going to come down to South Texas and go see Jaquaylin Crawford. So that's the one I'm sure of. I'll keep looking around and kind of seeing where guys are going to go. But, yeah, as you get later in the week, when practices kind of die off and Oklahoma kind of lets guys go home for the weekend or whatever they've got planned, you'll see coaches getting out, not only going to games, but going and stopping by and, making stops to schools and that kind of stuff and doing the various things they can get in.
All right. I guess it's that time for ratings and reviews. Although we've gotten several more reviews since our last podcast. I wouldn't say they were as good as our last round of reviews, but not bad. Five Iron Zach, which I assume is probably a buddy of Eddie's. Actually, I don't know. I'm kind of questioning whether that's true or not. Try to get this turned down a little bit. Because he doesn't say anything about Eddie. So, Five Iron Zach has given us 5 stars. He says, good podcast, sounds almost like a radio show. Easy to listen to. Covers most of the big sports stories at OU. Not just a fix for recruiting diehards. So, thank you, Five Iron Zach. Then we have one who said, this is just incredible.
We had that one last week.
Did we? Okay. Well, this is the only new one then that we have.
Yep. We've got one new one I see. Yep.
Natties for Patty. Someone has actually signed up on iTunes as Natties for Patty. You can guess where this one's going to go. First and foremost, please can we keep the Natties for Patty reign forever? Hashtag $1 Million Woman. Eddie, did you do this one? This podcast not only gives you everything you need to know about the ins and outs of Sooner sports, but it does a good job of, well, I've got to expand this. It does a good job of keeping things light for any listener to enjoy. It's a podcast students and older fans can get into. Love the last podcast about the curse of Katy Perry, but let us not also forget the 2014 was the birth of the throw the other team's ball over the north end. It was the only thing that even got students excited during the Baylor game. Heck, ESPN even did a segment on it last year about how now opposing teams have to keep an equipment manager outside the stadium to retrieve the balls. Love the talk of local Oklahoma establishments and the fact Carrie is not ashamed to be from the shady 580. So there you go. We're up to like 115 reviews, over 100 5-star reviews now. So keep them coming, and we'll read your review of our show on our next podcast. Eddie does not seem to be impressed at all.
No, you've heard of DNR, did not read? That's DNL, did not listen.
It was Natty's for Patty, though. Not creative enough for you?
Kind of lost me.
I want the 5-star review, and then just be hateful. Just open up and be hateful.
I agree.
That doesn't bother me at all.
That's our favorite type of all.
Yeah, that's the way I like it.
They had Tiffany Rowland last week with the late dad, with his kid and all that sort of stuff. She even thinks it's funny when they make fun of me, so she's all for it.
All right, fellas, it's the bye week. We're going to talk to Lincoln Riley today. So it is Tuesday as we're doing this podcast. We'll talk to the defense on Wednesday. So a little bit of a light week, but we'll have some stuff coming up. Hopefully we'll find out some more on the injury front today, specifically with Jordan Thompson. I think that's the one to really worry about. And then I think we're going to get good news pretty soon on Will Johnson, just repeating that. Also want to remind you guys, we do run a website that does pay the bills, SoonerScoop.com. Exciting news that we've got a new sponsor coming soon. Going to go down to Dallas during the bye week and meet with our new sponsor. So that's good news.
Very good news.
Keep the lights on a little bit longer. We could buy some fancy equipment for Josh or something, so he can maybe hear what we play on the podcast someday.
Yeah, I don't know that everybody out there knows I'm suffering through this, but it's painful all the same. No intro music.
Oh, we know when we play something, and then you inevitably every time we'll play something, and then you will come up with your own performance art of what was said in the clip that we play. Like, we don't set this up. It was just like today, you tried to do your performance art of what was said on the TV broadcast when it was the very first thing that we played on the show today, which is fantastic. I love that. Could be part of the drinking game, actually.
I was going to say, we're all annoyed about it, but I bet you everybody listening actually found it quite funny.
Yeah, they're sitting at home going, "Yeah, Josh, we heard that already. Where were you?"
Yeah.
So
you're an idiot. Turn up your headphones. They don't realize I can't hear. I don't know.
So yeah, we're working on getting that fixed. Hopefully, sponsorship will. We might put some money towards that. So exciting news to come. But yeah, we do have a website, SoonerScoop.com. Go subscribe, get on the message boards, chat with us. We'll tell you anything that you want to know, give you practice updates. You get video interviews right after the game is over from Eddie, so you can see what's being said in the locker room. You can hear and see what's being said. Post-game interviews, all that stuff. Lots of great content, recruiting, visit updates, trackers, all that stuff, if you're a member of SoonerScoop.com. So we promise it's worth the $9.99. Have thousands of subscribers. Everybody really enjoys it. So if you're not a part of it, we'd love to have you join us at SoonerScoop.com. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40. We think Josh, who's probably off to swim class with Laney. Eddie, thank you very much for joining us as well. And I am Kerry Murdoch. Until next time, we'll see you guys later here on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from SoonerScoop.com.